Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
Just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up. And when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
It makes it almost impossible for their bats to get going or have any confidence in the locker room when you're getting absolutely hosed on the defensive end.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It's their defense, man. Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt.
You saw Luka. I'm very intrigued to see how Luka bounces back after his first playoff series.
For next season, there are massive free agents like Giannis. And if Giannis goes to a team like the Heat, like I said before, I expect them to win the championship. 4 teams who could win the AFC in my mind, legitimately. Steelers, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert and Tony Pollard.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life.
So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing to have the Astros win a World Series and then you have to hear them.
Now LeBron's a 4-time champion and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
I think you have 2 established number 1 wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and I think you have an emerging star in CeeDee Lamb.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 75th episode. Make sure to check out our 74th episode where we did an MLB mock draft. And we, of course, did points. And I got 27 points and Austin got 16. And the numbers are so high because if you got a pick right in the right spot, you get 5 points. And if you got the same position, you got 1 point. So if you got the pick right perfectly, like Austin and I both had Jack Leiter going number 2 to the Rangers, that is 6 points. I was able to get 3. Austin, I believe, just got Leiter, but he got a lot of the positions later in the draft. So each got 1 point for those. So that's why the numbers are high. But make sure to check out that episode as we went completely different ways, except we went 4 for 4 with 4 for 4 in our mock draft. So we'll start off here with the number 1 overall pick. Pirates select a catcher. How are you feeling about that pick?
It's an interesting pick. I knew for a fact they were not going to choose a pitcher, not Rocker, not Leiter. So we really either were going to go with a shortstop or Henry Davis. I didn't really see either. I could only see 3 picks at number 1 because they weren't going to take Leiter or Rocker. They were either going to take Davis, who I really did not think they were going to take. They were going to take Lawler, who I also didn't think they were going to take, but I thought it was more likely. Or they're going to take Mayer, who both of us had at number 1. So, I mean, them selecting Henry Davis out of Louisville is definitely a surprising pick. But, I mean, I like it. They don't really have a consistent catcher right now. I know Jacob Stallings is starting to play better, but he's definitely not a long-term solution. So, I like this pick. I would have probably gone with Meyer or Lawler, but they didn't want to have to pay a high school guy a lot of money to stay there, so they went with the college players that they're going to have to pay. They don't have to pay as much, but like I said, it should help them out the catcher position. What about number 2?
Yeah, number 2, just one more thought on Henry Davis. Shortstop at number 1 makes more sense because it's such a premier position. While catcher is a very good position, but Henry Davis at catcher just surprised me because of catcher. But they save some money, as you said. Number 2, I am so happy with how this looks for the Rangers. We have a pitcher, Jack Leiter, and he is a dude, and I am so ready to pay him. And some people, from what I've been hearing, are saying, well, you may have to pay him a lot of money or he may leave. The Rangers, in my opinion, wouldn't have made this pick if they didn't know that they were going to sign Leiter to a deal. So I'm excited for the future. What do you feel? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, and he has great bloodlines. Not only did his dad play in the MLB, but his uncle and his I believe his cousin as well played. Um, his dad obviously won 2 World Series and also was a 2-time All-Star. So I mean, he has great bloodlines, and I think Jack Leiter um, is going to be exceptional. He's one of the best fastballs in the draft, especially among the college pitchers. So that'll definitely help him along in the minor leagues, as I think still the fastball is the most important pitch for any pitcher, unless you're a knuckleballer. So I think Jack Leiter was definitely the best pitcher in this draft, and the Rangers take advantage.
Yeah, and he can also get his pitches in the strike zone, which is different from Kumar Rocker, who threw pitches outside the zone. So if he gets a disciplined batter, it may be tough for him to get some outs, which could be another reason why he fell. But we'll get to that. Now we go to 3. We did not expect this. We had Jordan Lawler both going to Detroit. Detroit selects a pitcher, and it's not a college pitcher, it's a high school pitcher, Jackson Jobe, who you had him going in the top 10. I believe I had him just outside the top 10 at number 11 to the Nationals. So still pretty high up. But he is a great pitcher, and they can develop him, and he could really help. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, Jackson Jobe isn't the most surprising pick. I thought Jackson Jobe was going to be a high selection, like you said. We both had him top 11. I had him at 9 going to the Angels. Um, but I definitely didn't anticipate him being taken by Detroit's pick. I understand it. They do need pitching. Matt Boyd is their only consistent starting pitcher, and so picking up a guy that hopefully can succeed him. And obviously, they had a long history, especially in the mid 2010s or early 2010s, of great pitchers. Max Scherzer was in Detroit. Justin Verlander was in Detroit. Anibal Sanchez was in Detroit. They had a lot of premier talent in Detroit that were pitchers, and they need to get back to that if they're going to contend like they did in 2012 when they made it to the ALCS, or all the other times that they made it to the championship, like in 2010 when they lost to the Giants. I think they got swept by the Giants in 2010. No, not 2010. 2012? Yeah, that was 2012. Yeah, 2012 is when they lost to the Giants in the World Series. And then 2013, they made it to the ALCS and lost to the Boston Red Sox, who would eventually beat the Cardinals. But yeah, they had great pitching on that team that made it to the World Series and lost to the Giants. But yeah, that 2012 team was built on pitching, and they're going to have to get back there.
Wasn't David Price also on the team, or was he still in the? Because he started out in the bullpen.
During 2012, I believe that he was still on the Rays. However, I know in 2014, I believe he went to the Tigers. I know he played for the Tigers. You're right,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was during their run to the World Series.
Okay. And the Tigers did face off against
The Giants in 2012. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we can move on to number 4, where the Red Sox get Marcelo Mayer. You probably don't like this because Mayer's a really good guy, a really good player, and he's had some interesting comps to Corey Seager hitting wise, and then I believe Brandon Crawford defensively, which is just an incredible. Those are definitely some high comps, and if he lives up to them, it'd be a scary sight for everyone in the league, especially the Yankees. How do you feel about this pick?
Yeah, so he's a Yankees fan, or at least he was before he got drafted. So that's a very interesting thing to find out. But I'm sure he now loves the Red Sox and is a Red Sox fan for life. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with him choosing him. They obviously have Xander Bogaerts at shortstop, who's been a staple there for a couple of years now, and obviously he did make the All Star team. So I mean, he's pretty good. But yeah, Marcelo Meyer I think has the lowest floor out of any of the shortstops, and that's why he was selected the highest. The Red Sox are obviously doing very well this year, despite what I said at the beginning of the season, and they are looking towards the future to build with more a low floor people, so that they don't have anyone fall out on them at a high selection. We'll get to who I believe has the highest ceiling at shortstop. I'm sure you understand who I give that to, but I do think that this is a safe pick, a good pick, and I do think he'll play shortstop or third at the MLB level. Shortstop if you can get to the defensive side, but he's going to have to put on weight to get more of the power in his bat. So I do see him moving to third, uh, at least towards the tail end of his career. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and now we can go to number 5, which is a pick I got right, which is Colton Cowser, the outfielder um, from um, from Sam Houston. And this is a good pick. It's an underslot deal, which is has been tradition from the Orioles for the past few years. But now you look at their number 2 pick, which is Erikstead, the outfielder, and then you have Cedric Mullins, who played in the All Star game a few days ago, and now you have Cowser. So if they hit on this, they could have an amazing outfield. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, and I probably play Cowser in center. I know Cedric Mullins plays center, but I feel like Cedric, especially with his hitting, could probably move to left or right field. I don't think Cowser has the ceiling for a great hitter. He will be a good hitter and uh, a hitter that is definitely going to be a high batting average guy. He won around 280 probably at his peak. Maybe he could reach 300, but what I mean, he's not going to have power. And Cedric Mullins right now is showing power, so I believe you move him to left or right, probably right because he's still a great defensive uh, outfielder. But yeah, I like this pick. I had him falling a little bit more, uh, and he obviously did. And I had him going to 10 with the Mets. But him at 5 is definitely not a overswing. I like the pick, but it's just not what I expected.
Yeah, and now for number 6, we go to the Diamondbacks get Jordan Lawler, who I'm going to be guessing is your guy with the higher ceiling. And since I mentioned comps for Marcelo Mayer, Jordan Lawler has been comped to Carlos Correa and then the Yankee great Derek Jeter. So those are definitely some high comps as well. But he is incredible, and he is committed to Vanderbilt, but I believe he signs with Diamondbacks. I'm still not sure, but if he does sign, it will be an incredible pick, and it will definitely help their rebuild. Any agreements or disagreements?
Yeah, so I just wanted to get this off my chest. 'Cause I've seen a lot of people saying that Derek Jeter is the worst offensive shortstop of all time. And while he does have the least runs saved for a shortstop all time, that's mostly because of how many games and years he played. It's like, would you call the person in basketball? I know we're going back to basketball, but would you call the worst passer of all time the guy with the most turnovers? No, it's a cumulative stat. So if you're bad, if he's -2, which isn't, I'm not saying he's a good, I just see below average, and also the best hitting shortstop ever. So Jordan being compared to him is a great comparison, especially with how great of a hitter Derek Jeter was. And while I do think he'd probably be better defensively than Jeter was, that'll set him up for a lot of success. I don't think he'll be as good at hitting. It's hard to be the greatest hitting shortstop of all time. But the ceiling is there. Yes, you were right. This is a guy I feel like has the highest ceiling. He could be a Hall of Famer if he stays on his route. He is athletic enough to get to any ball. And while I do think his hitting is worse than Derek Jeter, it's not that far off. And so he'll be a good power shortstop who will come up key in big moments. I'm definitely excited for his career, and the Diamondbacks got a keeper.
He's also an incredible base runner. I believe it's 29 steals, but he did not get caught stealing this season. Um, he's incredible base runner. So that's also a key thing. Some incredible base runners. Who's also a great hitter and great defender. Mookie Betts, even though it's in the outfielder, we saw how he did well base running, I believe, against the Rays. But Jordan is a great base runner in addition to his great um, defensive skill set and great hitting ability. But I think we can move on to number 7. This is definitely surprising because you did not have this guy in the first round. I had him going to the Padres at 27, and that, of course, is the Royals selecting Frank Mazzucato, the left-handed pitcher from East Catholic High School. So this is definitely a surprise, but we both had the Royals getting Kumar Rocker, but they go with a different pitcher. He is a left-hander, So they're taking their time with the rebuild, and if it works out, he could be a great pitcher for them. What do you think?
Yeah, the pick makes 100% sense. Not because we expected it, but because of the same reasons what I said in the last video. They obviously got Brady Singer. They took so many other uh, pitchers high in the draft, and so they're just trying to build their bullpen and their rotation. So if we remember back to the Royals team in 2015, they had a lot of great arms that helped them excel over the top and obviously win a World Series. Obviously, back in 2014, they were a game away, so they were very close in both of those seasons and were one of the best teams in the league. Obviously, during those 2 years, and it was because of their pitching. Um, so I like this pick, especially if he was really high up on the boards. Which what I've read in articles, he was very high up on the boards, and he was planned to be taken before the draft started because they didn't think anybody above them was going to take him, and they were right. It's a stretch pick, but they've done more scouting on him than I believe any other team in the league. So if they see him this high, then I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, and we will see in the future. Now we move on to number 8. The Rockies select Benny Montgomery, the outfielder from Redland High School in Pennsylvania. I had him going to the Phillies, and I believe you had him going to the. Who'd you have him going to? I'm trying to find it on your draft, Austin.
I didn't have him going in the first round.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's interesting. But you had the Rockies selecting an outfielder, and Benny Montgomery has some tremendous speed, some raw power, and has the chance to be a good defender. So it's a good step in the right direction as we all believe the Rockies are going to enter the rebuild. They are in it this season, but admit it in this offseason or whenever they trade Story, which you don't think is going to happen, but I think it's going to happen. What else do you think?
Yeah, I like this pick for the same reasons that I thought the South Relic was going to go here. They need a fast outfielder to help shore up their defense. Tapia or Tapia, however you say his name. Sorry if I messed it up. Is a great outfielder, but I feel like they should move on to Charlie Blackman, and so Tapia can either play center, right, or left, while Montgomery obviously plays in one of those other positions, and that'll help shore up their outfield defensively. And that's a really big thing, especially in Coors Field. They're in Colorado. The ball is going to be hit further, so it's going to cause a lot more fly balls to go into the outfield, especially deep. So I mean that'll definitely help set them up with a great defensive outfield, which I think is essential, especially when you play in such a high altitude.
Yeah, and we saw some excellent plays in the outfield from from Aaron Judge, and I heard about Joey Gallo um, during the All Star game. But now we can move on to number 9. The Angels select a pitcher, but it's not Kumar Rocker who was on the board. They select Sam Backman from Miami of Ohio, who is very good. I had him going in the late teens, and then I believe you had him going
In the late teens, also, I had him at
okay.
19.
Okay, so it's pretty high from where we had him. But it makes sense why the Angels are getting a pitcher, because outside of it, Shohei Ohtani, they don't have much of pitching. From what I read, Sam Backman can come up to the major leagues pretty fast if they move him to reliever, but I think they keep him at a starting spot. What do you think?
Yeah, because their bullpen is a lot better than their starting rotation. Their starting rotation is why they lose games, not their uh, bullpen. At least in my opinion. Raciel Iglesias, their closing pitcher, has been very, very good lately. And that's definitely helped them shore up wins against teams that they might as well not have if they had a worse bullpen, maybe like the Nationals, who are really struggling at bullpen right now. Uh, so yeah, I like to pick because if you're keeping him at starting pitcher, which I do think and agree is the best thing to do, that definitely should help them reach the playoffs, which they haven't done in a while, and especially with two of the best players in the league, should be mandatory.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now we move on to number 10. I call this a steal with the Mets. They got Kumar Rocker, and Kumar just needs to get his pitches in the strike zone. Then I believe he'll do well in the big leagues. And you add him to this incredible rotation with DeGrom, with if Noah Syndergaard comes back healthy. You also got Tejon Walker, who was pitching in the All-Star game. Then you got Stroman. Then you add in Kumar, who was predicted before this year to be the number one overall pick. He falls to you at 10. I think it's a great pick for their value, and he has some great upside. What do you think?
Yeah, this was the only situation to where they take a pitcher. Either Leiter somehow falls to 10, which was just never going to happen, or Rocker falls to 10. Um, because their pitching isn't their issue. You just mentioned all their great pitchers. It's their run support that they do not have. So unless someone who was very high on their boards, which obviously Rocker was, and deservingly so, this was the only situation where they take a pitcher. I love the selection though. This is them using the same logic as other people in the draft, where you take the best person available, and Rocker was definitely at this point the best player available. If Kaiser fell, and it was Rocker, I feel like that would have made a much harder selection. But with him already off the board, and obviously Rocker right there, I mean Rocker could be a starting pitcher in the league 2 years down the line, especially if he excels through the uh, minor leagues. So I love this pick. I definitely anticipate him to struggle a little bit when he gets to the MLB at first because it's how different it is in the MLB game. There's very few pitchers that start out really, really good, but I feel like Leiter could be one of those, and Rocker's going to take a little bit of a longer path. But I do believe that he probably has the highest ceiling of any pitcher in the draft, and that's just because of everything he's shown with his fastball. If he can just get it in the zone consistently, um, he would be an exceptional player.
That's a perplexing situation if you mention Kaiser and Rocker are still on the board. That that I think they have to go Kaiser on that pick instead of Rocker, but we'll never know because it didn't happen. Now we move on to number 11, and where the Nationals select the shortstop. You and I believe, both had the Nationals going with pitching. Um, so they go with the shortstop, Khalil Watson, or no, Brady House, who I had going to the Rockies, and I believe you had them going. You had him going
Orioles.
Orioles. Okay, so he falls, so it makes sense. Similar to how Rocker fell, that they take a guy that falls who definitely has a great upside, and he just fell because of how well the shortstops ahead of him were. But what do you think?
Yeah, that and also some surprising pitchers were taken. So I love this selection. I see him as one of the best shortstops of the draft. I had him he was the third shortstop on my board, and obviously I had him going number 5. So I definitely love this pick. And while they have Trey Turner, they're slacking at other middle infield spots and also at third base. So I love this selection. I definitely feel like down the line, especially if he can become a great defensive shortstop, he can play shortstop while Trey Turner moves to second base. I do think that is the dream scenario. And while they do need relief pitching, um, they got some more of that in the later rounds of the draft. So I think in the first round, you got to be best player available oriented unless you really, really need a spot. And that's what they did here.
Yeah, and now we move on to number 12. We have the Mariners selecting Harry Ford, the catcher, who can also play the infield. He has a very strong arm, so if the Mariners want to play him at catcher, he can get runners out, and then he is good at the plate. I just saw them going with pitching, but because Harry Ford I had lower in the late teens, middle teens, and so I just didn't expect him going this high with number 12 with some pitchers like Will Bednar and Jordan Wicks, who I had felt I had high in the draft. What did you think?
Yeah, so I had Wicks going here to the Mariners. I also agreed that they needed more pitching to add on to the guy who obviously made the All Star game this past when was the All Star game yesterday. So um, it's definitely a surprising choice, especially with how good, recently speaking, that their infield has been, and also they've had some situation at catcher where the catcher has played well, but I definitely think Harry Ford's going to be a catcher down the line, especially with how he's definitely not going to play shortstop. So if he was going to play infield, he'd play second base or third base, and Kyle Seager's playing third. And I don't currently know who's playing second for the Mariners, but so he may move into that slot. Uh, but I do think in the future he'll be a catcher, and that'll help shore up their backstop.
So I looked up Seattle Mariners second baseman. It says Shed Long and Sam Haggerty. So they could add some more depth with Harry Ford. Um, but I think we can move on to number 13. The Phillies select a pitcher, Andrew Painter, out of Calvary Christian Academy. So some regarded him as the best high school arm in the country. So outside Jackson Joe, of course, went high. I just didn't see the Phillies going with a pitcher. But it's definitely a good pick because they could use some pitching in the big league level. But since he's from high school, it's probably going to take him some more time to get up there. What do you think?
Yeah, he's the third pitcher off the board from high school, and while he normally was going to be number two, the Royals obviously took a sleeper, I would say. But I also did not have them taking a pitcher. I had him taking Khalil Watson here, so uh, that's just how it works sometimes. I feel like pitching is an issue, especially at the end of their rotation and in the middle of their bullpen. However, I feel like shortstop is a more pertinent issue. I know they had Didi Gregorius there, but he's not going to be there for too much longer, I would assume, at least not at his defensive prowess that he's been, at least with the Yankees. So I do feel like this shores up needs for now, but also he's a high school player, so he's going to take longer to get there. I don't understand the pick, but they definitely can prove me wrong if he's outstanding. And if they really were really high on him going into the draft, I understand the selection.
Yeah, we will see how it turns out. Now we go to number 14. The Giants go with a pitcher, and that, of course, is Will Bednar from Mississippi State. I had Will Bednar going higher up to number 11, or yes, to actually number 12 to the Mariners. But makes sense from Giants' perspective to add a pitcher who definitely increased his stock after the College World Series. Um, and they've had some good pitching, but you can always add more pitching. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so taking a pitcher is comparable to taking an O lineman in the NFL. You never can take too many O linemen, in my opinion, in a draft. You can't. Even if all your picks are O linemen, that's not necessarily a bad draft. Yeah, it's the same thing here with pitchers. Pitchers are essential to winning, and so obviously are um, uh, O linemen. So the Giants taking a pitcher here, especially when I didn't think it was the biggest need, isn't a bad selection. I'm never going to harp on a team for taking a pitcher unless they really have a glaring need somewhere else, which I felt like the Phillies did have. But I like this pick. The Giants obviously had Kevin Gossman, who made the All Star game, and they have a lot of Alex Woods pitching very well, and their bullpen's also pitching very well. But that's pretty obvious when you have a team that's so high in the MLB rankings right now and leading a division with the Dodgers and Padres in it. So I like this pick. It'll help bolster their bullpen or maybe the end of the rotation in the future and help them stay young.
Yeah, and to talk about pitching depth, Astros have that. We saw it last year after losing Verlander. They still had a good rotation that we saw do well in the playoffs. And then, of course, you have the Dodgers this season as Bauer's suspension continues. And then you, of course, have Dustin May, who got injured, but they're still doing fine in their rotation because you still got Kershaw, Bueller, and Urias. And then you can talk about depth with the Padres, who definitely traded a lot for it. But now I think we can move on to number 15, the Brewers. I had them selecting a pitcher, but they actually go with Sal Frelick, who is from Boston College, and I believe we had Frelick going higher. I think I had him going just to the Giants in my mock draft. Um, he is a college hitter, so he could come up fast for the Brewers and definitely add to that outfield with Yelich. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I also heard that he was one of the best speed guys in the draft, so I definitely anticipate him going high. That's why I had the Rockies taking him at 8. So it's kind of surprising to me that he does fall as far as he does, but I do think the Brewers made the right selection here. Their outfield does need some help, especially with the injury concerns of Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, and also their left field is kind of turntable sometimes during the season. So I think taking a fast guy who can play center field and maybe move Lorenzo Cain to left field, especially towards the tail end of his career, I do think will help uh, extend their amount of time of success, especially with how good the Brewers are playing right now. In the future, it'll probably be harder, especially if the Cubs do make a move to get rid of Chris Bryant and some of the other teams in the division start to get better. So I definitely see them needing this pick to be good, and I definitely think that this was the right selection.
Now we move on to another pick, which is the Marlins pick. They got Khalil Watson, the guy, another high school shortstop, and this is probably another steal of the draft, like the Mets with Kumar Rocker. Khalil Watson just falls into the lap of the Marlins, and they of course take him as he is an above average runner, and he has some great tools. What do you think?
Yeah, so this was very surprising. We both had him going higher. I had him going 13 to the Phillies, who I thought really needed him, but the Marlins can really use middle infielding too. Um, this is definitely a pick that I think was a best on the board type of pick. I also had them taking a shortstop, Trey Sweetney, who eventually did fall to the Yankees. So I also think that's a fine pick by the Yankees, but we'll get to there soon. Uh, so yeah, I think they made the right position choice, and I think Khalil Watson is better than Trey Sweetney. So I mean, when they got here and they saw that both of them were on the board, they went with the highest guy on their board.
And the highest guy on your board. Now we go to number 17, or the highest guy left on your board when they were picking. Now we go to the Reds with Matt McClain, who I had going number 10 to the Mets. Matt McClain, I think, moves to second base, but he could stay at shortstop, but he's also a good hitter. And why not add another good hitter to the two outfielders that they have with Castellanos and Winker? So that's always a good thing. He's also a good defender, and I think it's a good pick from the Reds. Do you agree?
Yeah, so I actually misspoke last pick. I actually had Matt McClain higher than both of these guys. I had Matt McClain going 6. I saw some of the tape of Matt McClain, and while I do agree he will not probably play shortstop, he'll either play second or third. Probably second because he doesn't have the greatest arm. Um, his hitting is exceptional, and if he can just be great at defending at second base and bolster that with the ability to hit the ball like he's shown in college, um, I think he could be the steal of the draft. Like I said, I had him going 6 to the Diamondbacks, and he eventually fell all the way to 17, which I find really surprising. And I do think the Reds made the right selection. It's definitely going to be crazy seeing uh, what happens. They needed help at shortstop. They've been playing Eugenio Suarez, I think is his name, who's normally a third baseman. He gets a lot of homers and can't really play much infield as much as some other guys. Let me just fact check that, but yeah, I'm right. But he's a third baseman and a shortstop that's been playing a good bit of shortstop lately, and they needed infield help along with some pitching depth. But when you see Matt McClain still on the board, at least I would make the same selection they did. So uh, I love this pick.
I'm going to disagree with you there. He is a steal of the draft, but he's not the steal of the draft. The steal of the draft is Will Taylor to the Texas Rangers in the 19th round after he signs with them. What are you going to say?
That's only if he. That's only if he
He is going
signs.
to sign. I have hope. I hope. I have hope. Maybe too optimistic, but that'd be pretty cool. Now we go to number 19. I was a pick away with this. Gunnar Hoglund goes to the Blue Jays, who needs some pitching. Oh, no, I skipped over one. 18. Cardinals. Michael McGreevy. They select a pitcher as well. Got a little too ahead of myself there. He is a very interesting player, and he does have a good combination for a field of pitching. But I think he needs to work on some things. But it's a good thing from the Cardinals, who need some more pitching. And like you said earlier in the episode, you can never have too much pitching. What do you think about this pick?
Yeah, so this is another guy selected in the first round that I didn't even have him going in the first round. I do think he's a good pitcher. I've looked at some of his comparisons and stuff like that, and I do like his fastball. I do think he has a talented arm, and so if he just has control issues, which is pretty common for guys of his age. So if they have a good system over there at the Cardinals, which I think they do, along with guys like Flattery, Jack Flattery, and the rest of their bullpen being pretty good, um, I think this is a great pick, especially if he was high up on their boards. I'm going to keep repeating that because it's essential to mention that while we may not have them that high, they have the scouts. They have the guys who've gone to the games, seen the guys play, and know what they need as a team. So if he was really high up on their boards, I like this pick. I think they reached a little bit, but maybe they saw something that I didn't, and that's probably probable since I didn't do too well predicting all the rest of the draft. So that's how that works.
We're also not paid scouts, but if we are offered a right job, I feel we would take it. So options open. Rangers, you can take me. Yankees, you can take Austin. Or Rangers, you can take Austin as well. We'll see. Now, number 19, we go to Blue Jays. Gunnar Hoglund, the pitcher who I'd going to the Yankees. He, of course, is coming off of Tommy John surgery. But if he didn't have Tommy John, he was looked at as a top 10 pick. So it's a good steal from the Blue Jays, who are starting to near that time when a franchise needs to make some more moves to go contend because they have some nice pieces. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette. So adding another pitcher will help them here to because they need some pitching. I know you wouldn't like that, but Yankees cheering aside, how do you feel about this pick?
Well, Gunnar Hoagland, I was 2 picks away. Yeah, and I obviously like his stuff. He's another fastball pitcher with a great slider, so I definitely think that he can step up to be someone they need. And obviously, the Blue Jays are a team that's kind of bolstering their starting rotation with guys like Ryu, who obviously was almost a Cy Young winner in 2019, and they signed him. And they also have history success with like guys like R.A. Dickey, who's been there for a while. Obviously, they had Roy Halladay, who was a Hall of Fame pitcher who pitched with the Blue Jays for a while, and they're just hoping that he can be the same.
So I had the Yankees going with a pitcher. But they go with Trey Sweeney. They do need shortstop because it's a little bit shaky about the future of Torres. But I'll let you talk more about your Yankees pick.
Yeah, so I love this pick. I would have gone with an outfielder because I believe center field was more pertinent issue, but we do need defensive help in the infield, especially at shortstop. The situation is kind of interesting because we move Torres to second. I guess we would move DJ to first, in which case we'd keep Gio at third, and then obviously move Sweetney into shortstop. But it'd be kind of tough because that means we lose Voit. But Sweetney, I don't think is a guy that we'll get here in the next few years. I feel like he's a more 3 to 4 year guy. But I do like his upside. And I do think that he can become a great defensive shortstop and hopefully bring back some of the success that the Yankees have normally had at shortstop.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that with Derek Jeter. But now we can move on to number 21, Jordan Wicks, the left-handed pitcher from K-State. Falls to the Cubs. This is a good pick because they do need some pitching. That can be showcased from their last game versus the Cardinals, where they went through three pitchers in the fifth inning when they lost to the Cardinals. But what do you think about this pick?
Wow, I mean, it's definitely an interesting selection. I think it's the right one. However, it's interesting for me because of how far he fell. I had Wicks being taken in the high tens. I think I had him. I'll check right now. I think I had him at 13. No, I had him at 12. Yeah, I had him at 12. And for him to fall all the way to 21, I definitely feel like is a surprising move. Um, Especially because he was a college pitcher, so you probably had to pay him less. And now the Cubs at 21 even have to pay him even less than that. So I love this pick. Another one of those best player on the board picks, and I think the Cubs got another steal.
Now we move on to Chicago White Sox, where this is the final pick that I got right, which is Colson Montgomery, the shortstop. White Sox do have some good depth at shortstop um, with Anderson. Then you also have Yohan Makata at third, where Montgomery could move to third, but he's a great player and also a good hitter. So this is a good pick from the White Sox, and he was high on their draft board as well, from what I've heard.
Yeah, in worst case scenario, you can just move him to second base. I mean, second base has had a lot of great hitters in its history, like Robinson Cano for the Yankees. Obviously, DJ LeMahieu's played well. I know I can only name Yankees players, but that's because I'm a Yankees fan. But I mean, worst case scenario, like I said, they can move him to second, and that with great hitters can happen. Um, it's not going to hurt their success. Oh, I mean, Jose Altuve. There we go, another second baseman. But Marcus Simeon for the Blue Jays, another second baseman. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that can move to second base, and I do feel like, especially if Tim Anderson and Moncada continue to show success at their positions, especially defensively, I think they move Montgomery to second, and that'll, I think, shore up their infield almost completely, especially with Jose Abreu being at first.
That is very true. That would be a very nice infield. Um, and then you can also mention, I believe Michael Young played a little bit of second base for the Rangers when
Maybe.
I think it's after we traded Kinsler. Kinsler also a good second baseman. Now we move on to number 23. The Indians get a pitcher, which is Gavin Williams from East Carolina. He hit 100 miles per hour as a freshman, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So if he can fix that, it'd be a good thing. And the Indians add another pitcher, and they need to add more pitching because they've lost pitching in the past few years from when they made it to the World Series with Shane Bieber, Bauer, and of course Corey Kluber. How do you feel about this pick?
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, there's two sides of this pick. One, like you mentioned, he's injury prone, so they're gonna have to make sure they keep him on a tight regimen, where he won't get hurt. Um, but I do like him. I had him going to 26 with where the Twins had their pick, but he ends up going a little bit before that. I like the selection, especially if they like again, like I'm gonna say it again. He like if he was high up on their boards. I think it's a little bit of a risky pick, but I thought it was a risky pick no matter what because of his injury history. But he definitely has really high upside as long as he stays healthy.
That's very true. Now we go to another pitcher being picked, and that, of course, is by the Braves, who need pitchers because they can't stay healthy. But they get a good pitcher here with Ryan Cusick out of Wake Forest, a college pitcher, so he could be there in 1 to 2, maybe 3 years to add to the rotation. So that's a good thing for the Braves. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a guy I thought was going to go high second round. I didn't really see him going in the first round. Maybe in some of those compensatory picks, like the ones that from like 32 or I mean 31 to like 36. I think are the compensatory picks that are like of the teams that are at the very low, uh, with how much money they're getting in. But I like this pick. Like you said, you don't have to pay him as much, and he'll go faster to the MLB because he is a college pitcher, and so I definitely think that he'll be a good prospect for them in the future.
Now we move on to the Athletics pick, where this is not from 2012 when they actually selected Max Muncy, but they actually select the first baseman now for the Dodgers. They actually select the shortstop Max Muncy, who is a very good player. And this is, yeah, it is 2012 because it was 9 years ago when they selected Max Muncy, which would make it 2012. So that's a good pick, and you can add shortstop because they did lose Marcus Simeon as their shortstop from Oakland, and Maxwell Muncy has earned some good comps. I believe someone said Corey Seager, but he is a very good shortstop, and if he can make it up while they still have Matt Chapman at third base, that'd be a really good solid duo, and then a solid infield with their first baseman with Matt Olson. I'm forgetting about their second baseman right now, but it is a very talented infield, nonetheless. What do you think?
Yeah, the only difference is with the Max Muncy pick and the other Max Muncy pick is that the first Max Muncy back in 2012 was a fifth round pick, not a first. So, um, and their comp is kind of similar. I mean, Max Muncy, the Dodgers one, has played second, third, and first, so everything besides uh, shortstop in the infield. And while Max Muncy fills in that puzzle being a shortstop, so that fills in all the spots for Max Muncy in the infield. Besides, obviously, pitcher and catcher, which is a lot less likely for, especially for these players. But yeah, I like the pick. Their infield has lost some guys, like you mentioned, Marcus Simeon. They also have picked up guys like Elvis Andrews, who are much older and definitely will most likely not be there when he turns around, when Max Muncy turns around into the MLB. So I like this selection, and I do think it helps them in the future.
Now we move to another team definitely looking forward towards the future is the Minnesota Twins as they've run into some trouble. They select a pitcher which can help them in Chase Petty, another high school pitcher. He has some great arm strength. He has touched 100 miles per hour, but some people didn't like his delivery, so that's a problem. But still, adding a good pitcher is good for a team that is definitely trying to, if they want to go in contention, because you and I both had them um, making the playoffs in our way too early predictions, or a team that's rebuilding, it's good to get a good pitcher, and they do that with Petty. What do you think?
Yeah, so the Twins are definitely a team that struggled not only with injuries to their pitchers, but also just performance. And so taking Petty here, I definitely think uh, is the right selection. He was probably the highest guy on the board. I had Petty going to the Braves at 24, so he's just fell a little bit on my board, and I definitely feel like he is a good pitcher, good fastball, good slider, and in the future, I definitely feel like he can be a starter to MLB level.
Yep, and now we go to the Padres, who selected Jackson Merrill, the shortstop, another high school shortstop. Some scouts were pouring over him, but not many predicted him to be a first round pick. Um, this guy could maybe move to second, or because you have Tatis at shortstop. But he's just a very good prospect. Maybe they could use it in a trade. That seems like a more likely outcome to me, as they try to add some more pieces in the future, while they're in this contention window. What do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely think Merrill will probably move to second, but I mean, Jake Cronenworth, who was their second baseman, was an all-star. So I think they may try to move Machado to first if Hosmer continues to not hit as well, and move Jackson Merrill to third if that's what happens. But I think it's an interesting selection. He must have been really high up on their board for them to take him in the first round instead of a pitcher or a catcher. Um, it's a questionable pick. I'm kind of iffy on it. He had to be high up on their board for them to select him, especially with, like you said, he'll move to second, but their second baseman's already an all-star. So I don't know why they feel like it's necessary to take him unless they're going to do what I said and move on from Eric Hosmer, move Machado to first, and then play him at third. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think of that's an interesting moving Machado to first. Um, but we'll see. I think he may get traded away. Jackson Merrill gets traded away just to bring in another prospect or another person to help immediately at the big league level in the future. But we'll see. Now another high school shortstop with the 28th pick from the Rays, Carson Williams, who has a great one of the top arms in the class and is great defensively. So the Rays love defense, and they just traded away Adamas to the Brewers. So this just helps them stock up their depth at shortstop, and it could be a good pick if they want to trade another person and keep that big league payroll very low. Like we saw, they were like second lowest last year when they made it to the World Series. But what are your thoughts?
But he, I think, has the highest defensive upside of anyone in the draft. From what I've heard and what I've seen, is that he can get to any ball, and he has a really strong arm. So if he can get to it, he can throw you out, unless it's really slow or really hard. So I love this pick. The Rays are known for their defense, especially with like Kevin Kiermaier in center field, and especially all the other guys they've had play for them. But yeah, this guy I think will be while he won't be Ozzie Smith, he'll be the Ozzie Smith of the draft, the best defensive shortstop, one of the guys that you can rely on to get to any ball and make any play. And who knows? Maybe that gets him an All-Star spot. Maybe he wins him some Gold Gloves. Maybe it wins him the Platinum Glove, which is the best defender in the MLB. So we'll see what happens.
We will see. Now, concluding our MLB draft review, we go to the Dodgers with the 29th pick. They select Maddox Bruns, the left-handed pitcher from high school. He has huge upside, and Dodgers have done well developing their pitching. As I mentioned, they have some great depth with Buehler being one of their aces. Then you got Decime, who's injured, then Urias. So this just adds to it, and if they can develop him, he will be a great player for them. What do you think?
Yeah, so he's a guy that has a really high ceiling and a really low floor. So they are trusting in their ability to develop pitchers, which they've done before. I mean, Walker Bueller, Clayton Kershaw, Kelly Jansen. All of these guys grew up with the Dodgers and continue throughout their career with them, and so they're really trusting their success at the minor leagues and their coaching throughout their levels to help lead him to be near his ceiling. Like I said, if he's not taught right, I do feel like he could fall off, which isn't what obviously he or the Dodgers want. So they're going to have to teach him right for him to be good for this selection.
And that concludes our MLB draft review. Make sure to check out our mock draft where I won that with 27 points, and Austin got 16 points. So make sure to check that out, see who we had going, where we talked about it a little, but not for each pick. But we will be staying in the Major League Baseball realm of talking sports. So next episode will be our MLB Home Run Derby review and All-Star Game review. There's definitely a lot to talk about in there because of the horrendous jerseys that they wore for that game, but also a good story with Trey Mancini making it all the way to the finals against Pete Alonso. So make sure to check out that episode, but make sure to check out our previous episodes and check out our interviews. So thank you again for listening to Outsiders Opinions.